Hi guys, before we start, I would just like to say I apologise for any road noises you hear, like this. Okay, never mind, I didn't really pick it up, but if you hear anything from outside, I'm sorry I have my window open because I went on my new jumper. Um, but yeah, it's a bit warm. So anyway, once again, going from the point where I don't know where we left off because I don't draw in these books or leave it at a normal stage, so we're just going to go from where I think it is. There is one point that you haven't noticed, said the wizard, and it is a secret entry. Oh, wait, we have read that. Oh, here we go. I know where we ended. It may have been a secret once, said Doreen, but how do you know that it is a secret any longer? Old Smug has lived there long enough now to find out anything there is to know about these caves. He may, but he can't have used it for years and years. Why? Because it's too small. 5 feet high and the door 3 may walk abreast, said the rune, but Smug cannot creep into a hole that size. Not even when he was a young dragon. Certainly not devouring so many of the dwarves and men of Dale. It seems like a big hole to me, squeaked Bilbo, who had no experience of dragons and only of hobbit holes. He was getting excited and interested again, so that he forgot to keep his mouth shut. He loved maps, and in his hall there was hung a large one. Thank you, road of the county round, with all his favourite walks marked on it in red ink. How could such a large door be kept secret from everybody outside, apart from the dragon? He asked. He was only a little hobbit, for you must remember. In lots of ways, says Gandalf, but in what ways is this one has been hidden? We don't know without going to see. From what it says on the map, should, I should guess that there is a closed door which had been made to look exactly like the side of the mountain. That is the usual dwarf method. I think it is right, isn't it? Quite right, said Doreen. Also, Gandalf went on, I forgot to mention that with this map went a key, and a small and curious key. Here it is, he said, and handed Doreen a key. I don't know why there's so many cars going down my street today. It's not as if there is a road diversion, and this is quite a quiet street anyway, but you know, it is what it is. um, Long barrel, and I don't know how you pronounce that word. You know when you like indent a key with some words, that's what happened to it. Alright. Made of silver. Keep it safe. Indeed I will, said Dorian, as he fastened it up upon a fine chain that hung about his neck under his jacket. Now things began to look more hopeful. This news alters them for much for the better. So far we haven't had no clear idea what to do. We thought of going east as quiet and careful as we could, as far as the long lake, then after trouble would begin. A long time before that, if I knew anything about the roads even, interrupted Gandalf. We might go far from there up along the river running, went on Thorin, taking no notice, and so of the ruins of Dale, the old town in the valley there under the shadow of the mountain. But there were none of us like the idea of the front gate. The river runs right out through the gate cliff at the south of the mountain, and out comes the dragon too, far too often, unless he has changed his habits. That would be no good, said the wizard. Not without a mighty warrior, even a hero. I tried to find one, but the warriors are busy fighting one another in distant lands, and in this neighbourhood heroes are scared or simply not to be found. Swords in these parts are mostly blunt, and the axes are used for trees, and the shields cradled or dish covers, and dragons are comfortably far off and therefore legendary. And this is why I settled on a burglary, especially when I remembered the existence of a side door. And here is our little Bilbo Baggins, the burglar, the chosen and selected burglar. So now let's get on and make some plans. Very well then, said Doreen. Suppose the burglar expert gives us some idea or suggestion, he turned to mock pointlessness to Bilbo. First, I should like to know a bit more about things, said he, feeling all confused and a bit shaky inside, but so far still tookishly determined to go on with things. I mean, about the gold and the dragon and all that, and how it got there, and who it belongs to, and so on, so forth. Bless me, said Doreen. Haven't you got a map? And didn't you hear about our song? And haven't we been talking about this for hours? All the same, I should like it plain and clear, he said obstinately, putting on his business manner, usually reserved for people who try to borrow money off him, and doing his best to appear wise and prudent and professional, and live up to Gandalf's recommendations. Although I should like to know about risks, out-of-pocket expenses, time required, and recommunication. Doesn't say recommunication, but I have no idea what that says. Remuneration, and so forth. By which he meant, what am I going to get out of it? Am I going to come back alive? Oh, very well, said Doreen. Long ago in my grandfather Thora's time, our family was driven out of the far north and came back with all their wealth and their tools to this mountain on the map. It had been discovered by my far ancestor Thrain the Old, but now they tunnelled and they made huge halls and great workshops, and in addition I believe they found a good deal of gold and great jewels too. Anyway, they grew immensely rich and famous, and my grandfather was king under the mountain again, and treated with great reverence by the mortal men who lived south, and were gradually spreading up the running river as far as the valley overshadowed the mountain. They built the merry town of Dale. There were in those days, King used to send for our smiths and reward even the least skilful most richly. Fathers would beg us to take their sons on as apprentices and pay us handsomely, especially in food supplies, which we were never bothered to grow or find ourselves. Altogether, those were good days for us. Poorest of us had money to spend and lend, and leisure to make beautiful things just for the fun of it. Not speak of the most marvellous and magical toys, the like of which is not to be found in the world nowadays. So my grandfather's halls became full of armour and jewels and carvings and cups and Troy markets of Dale, the wonder of the north. Undoubtedly, that was what brought the dragons to steal the gold and jewels, you know, from men and elves and dwarves wherever they could find it, and they guard their plunders as long as they live, which practically forever unless they are killed, and never enjoy a brass ring of it. Indeed, they hardly know a good bit of work from the bad, though they usually have a good notice of the current market value, and they can't make a thing for themselves, not even mend a little loose scale of their armour. There were lots of dragons in the north in those days, and gold was probably getting scarce up there with the dwarves flying south or getting killed, and all the general waste and destruction that the dragons make from going bad to worse, and those most speciously greedy. Suspiciously. Oh, one especially greedy, strong, and wicked worm called Smog. One day he flew up into the air and came south. The first we heard of it was a noise like a hurricane coming from the north, and the pine trees in the mountain creaking and cracking in the wind. Some of the dwarfs who had happened to be outside, I was one lucky or fine adventurous lad in those days, always wandering about, and saved my life for that day. Well, from a good day we saw the dragon set aloft in the mountain in a sprout of flame. Then he came down the slopes, and when he reached the woods they all went up in fire. By the time all the bells were ringing in Dale, the warriors were arming, the dwarves were shouting at the great gate, but there was the dragon waiting for them. None escaped that way. The river rushed up the stream, and the fog fell on Dale, and in the fog the dragon came to destroy most of the warriors. The usual unhappy story was only too common in those days. Then they went back and cut through the forest gate, and all rooted out to the halls and lanes and tunnels and alleys, cellars, mansions and passages. After that there were no dwarves left alive inside, and he took all their wealth for himself, probably for it is the dragon's way. He has piled it up in the great heap far inside and sleeps on it for a bed. Later he used to crawl out of the great gate and come by the night to Dale and carry away people, and especially maidens, to eat, until Dale was ruined and all the people were dead or gone. But what goes on there now, I don't know for certain, but I don't suppose anyone lives near the mountain that far from the edge of Long Lake nowadays. The few of us that were all outside and sat and wept in the hiding and cursed smug, and they were unexpectedly joined by my father and grandfather with singed beards. Sorry guys, just need to drink some tea, my throat's getting freaking dry. They looked very grim, but they said very little. When I asked how they had gotten away, they told me to hold my tongue and said that one day, in proper time, I should know. After that we went away, and we have to earn our livings as best as we could, and down the lands are often enough sinking as low as the blacksmith work or even coal mining, but we have never forgotten our stolen treasure, and even now, when I will allow it to be, when I have a good bit laid by, and they're not so off badly. Here Thorin stroked a gold chain round his neck. We still mean to get it back and bring our curse home to Smug if we can. Hang on. Kind of forgot to say I got a new mug. I'm very happy about it. It's also Winnie the Pooh. I don't think I mentioned my jumper was Winnie the Pooh, but yeah, they're both Winnie the Pooh. Anyway, I'll get on with the story. I have often wondered about my father's and grandfather's escape. I see now they must have had a private side door, which only they knew about, but apparently they made a map which I should like to know Gandalf got hold of, and why it did not come down to me, the rightful heir. I did not get a hold of it, I was given it, said the wizard. Your grandfather Thorin was killed, do you remember, in the mines of Moria by Ozog the Goblin. Yes, his name, yes, said Thorin, and Thrain, your father, went away off on the 21st of April, 100 years ago, last Thursday, and has never been seen by you since. True, true, said Thorin. Well, your father gave me this to give to you, and if I had chosen my time and way of handing it over, you can hardly blame me, considering the trouble I had to find you. Your father could not remember his own name when he gave me the paper, and he never told me yours, so on the whole thing, I think I ought to be praised and thanked. Here it is, he said, handing the map to Thorin. I don't understand, said Thorin, and Bilbo thought he would likely say the same. Explanation did not seem to explain. Your grandfather, said the wizard slowly and grimly, gave the map to his son for safety before he went to the mines of Moria. Your father went away to try his luck with the map after your grandfather was killed, and lots of adventures of a most unpleasant sort he had, but he never got near the mountain. How he got there, I don't know, but I found him a prisoner in the dungeons of the necromancer. Whatever were you doing there? asked Thorin with a shudder, and all the dwarfs shivered. Oh, this is where I got to last time I read this. No, I never made it to chapter 2. Brilliant. Never you mind, I was finding things out, as usual, and the nasty dragon business it was. Even I, Gandalf, only just escaped. I tried to save your father, but it was too late. He was witless and wandering. He had forgotten almost everything except the map and the key. We have long ago paid the goblins and more, said Thorin. We must have thought it was thought to the necromancer. Don't be absurd. He is the enemy far beyond powers of all the dwarfs put together. If they could be collected again from the four corners of the world, the only thing your father wishes was for his son to read the map and use the key. The dragons in the mountains are more than big enough task for you. Hear, hear, said Bilbo, accidentally saying it aloud. Hear what? They also turning to him suddenly towards him. He was flushed with the answer. Hear what I have to say. What's that? They asked. Well, I say you should try not to go east and have a look around. After all, it is a side door, and dragons must sleep sometimes, I suppose. If you sit on the doorstep long enough, I dare say you will think of something, and well, don't you know, I think we have talked about it long enough for one night, if you see what I mean. What about bed and an early start to go, all that? I will give you a good breakfast before you go. Before we go, I suppose you mean, Thorin. Aren't you a burglar? And isn't sitting on the doorstep your job? Not to speak of getting inside the door. But I agree about bed and breakfast. I like 6 eggs with my ham when they start on a journey. Fried, not poached. And mind you don't break 'em. After all the others had ordered their breakfast without so much of a please, which annoyed Bilbo very much, They all got up. The hobbit had to find room for them all and filled all his spare rooms and made beds and chairs and sofas before he got them all. I think that says sorted, but it says STOWER. Eh? And went on to his own little bed, very tired and not altogether happy. One thing he did make his mind up was not to bother to get up very early and cook everyone else's wretched breakfast. The tookishness was wearing off, and he was now quiet, so sure that he was things going off on a journey in the morning. As he lay in bed, he could hear Thorin still humming to himself in the best bedroom next to him. Far over the misty mountains, cold to dungeons deep in caverns old, you must away ere break of day to find long forgotten gold. Bilbo went to sleep, and with that all in his ears, and it gave him very uncomfortable dreams. It was long after the break of day when he woke up. Okay, now we're on chapter 2, but I think I'm going to start reading that, next video. Unless I switch books. Oh yeah, I said I was going to switch books for now. So yeah, I guess I'll have a look around for a good book. Might be before I go to sleep, because I do find that to be very good. But yeah, comment whatever book you want me to read next, or I might just randomly select one off my bookshelf. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and tune in for the next one. Bye.